In the annals of American history, only a few events are so well known and so deeply rooted in national remembrance that the mere mention of their date suffices to describe them. Of these occurrences, none could have had more significance for our nation than December 7th, 1941.
On that Sunday morning, 79 years ago, the Imperial Japanese Navy launched an unprovoked surprise attack on the United States Armed Forces members stationed at Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. The attack claimed the lives of 2,403 Americans, wounded 1,178 more, and damaged our naval capabilities in the Pacific. Such destruction seared the memory of a generation and galvanized the will of the American people in a fight to maintain our right to freedom without fear.
Looking back, it was a time before television when radio was king. The nation was recovering from an economic depression. To many people, it was a time of their young lives.
Yet, in a flash, thousands of lives were lost as Pearl Harbor was attacked. A day that would live in infamy as FDR told an anxious nation across scratchy radio speakers. It was this aggressive action that would propel America into the Second World War.
Remember Pearl Harbor was first a call to battle. Of course, to keep fresh the shock and the rage, and to summon the unity needed to win a long, exhausting war.
It was only a few days after the attacks in December 1941 that the phrase, "Remember Pearl Harbor," first appeared in the New York Times. It took barely a week for Hollywood to register as a movie title. Today, that film is justly forgotten, but the phrase lives on, and 79 years have not dimmed the memory or meaning of that day.
There was something paradoxical in that instant call to remember. It wasn't as if any American living then could forget. Certainly not those that were there that day, that smelt the blazing oil on the water, that heard the shrieks of the sirens and planes, or the frantic tapping of the men trapped inside the capsized Oklahoma and the other ships. And certainly not those that heard of the news that day, of the lives lost in the ensuing World War.
For too many years now, the memory of December 7th, 1941 has been slipping away. It's heartbreaking to know that it took another tragic event like September 11th to get us all thinking about our history once more. It is important for Americans to remember our history, the high and the low points.
The youngest of the survivors are in their early 100s now. Our direct connection to that day will soon flicker out. Yet we will still remember to pay respect to sacrifice, to honor bravery, and to note the dear price of peace.
Remembering in this way, like we here at PCTVS are doing today, helps nurture a flame, not a grudge. Elevates both the memory and the remembered.
Per annual tradition on December 7th, flowers were tossed into the oil-speckled waters of a peaceful harbor outside Honolulu, with Americans summoning the memory of a people cherished and dearly missed, and strengthening the unity of a nation well-loved and worth defending.
Every honor is appropriate for the courageous Americans who made the supreme sacrifice for our nation at Pearl Harbor and in the many battles that followed in World War II. Their sacrifice was for a cause, not for conquest, for a world that would be safe for future generations. Their devotion must never be forgotten.
We honor our dead by the solemn ceremony. We do so as well by protecting the nation and the freedom they protected, and by forging the resolve, the strength, and the military preparedness necessary to deter attack and to preserve and build the peace. As President Franklin Roosevelt told our nation the day after Pearl Harbor was attacked, "It is our obligation to our dead. It is our sacred obligation to their children and our children that we must never forget what we have learned."
We've come a long way as a nation and as a people since December 7th, 1941. Amid all the technological changes, all of us gathered must still keep alive the tragic lesson of Pearl Harbor. That is the challenge. The attack on September 11th, like Pearl Harbor, serves as a stark reminder that as citizens of this great land of freedom, we all too often forget the lessons of history. That is why we gather to remember.
You and I pay no finer tribute to those we remember on this day than to ensure them that the nation for which they sacrificed for remains free and strong enough to preserve its freedom no matter what the future holds. It is a history lesson worthy of retelling over generations. It is a lesson that we should never forget, as if we do, we will only allow history to repeat itself. December 7th is a lesson for all ages throughout our history. That is why we at PCTVS are here today. We will always remember. Thank you.
Remembering our fallen. Throughout history, men and women have died serving their country. They demonstrated a sense of honor, duty, loyalty, and self-sacrifice to the highest human level. Though the causes of the wars, conflicts, and situations might have changed, their ultimate sacrifice has not. It is for this purpose that we remember our fallen. We remember them in their youth. We remember those lives cut short of the human life experience of family celebrations, growing children, aging parents, and the many happy moments missed. We honor them and their families as they endure the emptiness and pain of no longer having their loved ones present in their lives. We reflect as a grateful nation for their service and sacrifices to keep the nation's principles and preserving our freedoms. We accept the responsibilities of remembering and honoring our fallen as a part of our legacy and our duty for all they have given us. We place a wreath at their grave to symbolize our continuous connection with our fallen, a never-ending cycle of life and humanity. We are all part of one universal force and never alone. Together, the memories make us one, and that is why we need to remember our fallen.